For we are God's masterpiece. These words were written by one of the first Christian leaders named Paul. Even though the phrase is ancient, it's still familiar, isn't it? We are part of a culture that tells us that we are the main character of our story. In other words, we've grown up believing that we're built different and in all the best ways. Maybe you picked up on this from the words of a parent, a coach, a grandparent, or even a friend. Although Paul was writing to the followers of Jesus, even if you're not a Christian, you probably grew up hearing something similar to "you're a masterpiece," either from someone else or from society as a whole. Maybe it sounded like "you're special. You can be anything you want to be. You're unique." So when we read phrases about being God's masterpiece in the Bible, it's easy to breeze by them without giving them much thought. But if we are all masterpieces, then why does it seem like it's so common to treat one another like trash? If we grow up hearing messages about how important, special, and unique people are, then why does it feel like talking down or verbally beating someone up is totally acceptable, normal, and even expected? The truth is, we say with our mouths that we think people are masterpieces, but that's not how we treat them. Mona Lisa, maybe one of the most famous paintings of all time, is a masterpiece. And it is treated like one. It's kept behind bulletproof glass in a climate-controlled setting under constant security. All of that for a painting. Do you see how tiny that is? It gets bulletproof glass. Why? Because masterpieces deserve the best care possible. But it's obvious that not all people receive this kind of care or concern. And over the last few years, things seem to be worse than ever. We've gotten used to arguing over everything, yelling to make our point, talking bad about people on social media, and looking down on people who don't agree with us. When you stop to think about it, the world is just mean. And maybe worst of all, we've gotten used to it. What are some things we've gotten used to that are just mean? Deep down, we may know it isn't the way things should be. But what do we do about it? Where do we even begin? Well, we can start by naming what we're seeing, experiencing, and sometimes even participating in ourselves. Bullying. Bullying isn't new to us, the idea or the word. But just so we're on the same page, let's define what bullying is. The National Center Against Bullying defines bullying as an ongoing, deliberate misuse of power in relationships through repeated verbal, physical, and social behavior that intends to cause physical, social, and psychological harm. It can involve an individual or a group misusing their power or perceived power over one or more persons who feel unable to stop it from happening. If we were to put that in words connected to faith, we might say that bullying is when we repeatedly diminish the image of God in someone else in what we say, do, or how we behave. In other words, it's a big deal. Even if something happens only once, it is still a big deal. Plus, bullying isn't just a high school problem. Isn't it true that you've seen adults participate in bullying even more in the last couple of years? Except it's not called bullying, it's just normal. In fact, chances are that all of us have, are, or will experience bullying in one of these ways. The first one, bullying others. Some of us might be using bullying behavior towards others. We might be gossiping, mistreating, or intentionally harming other people in an effort to cover up our own hurts, pains, or desires for control. Being bullied by others. Some of us might be on the other side of this issue. We might be being bullied by someone else. We've been put down, excluded, or hurt by people for no reason at all. And we feel misunderstood and devalued in ways that cut to the core of our ideas of being a masterpiece. And the third way is being a bystander. Others of us may not be acting like a bully or being bullied, but we've been bystanders. We've watched as someone was mistreated at practice. We've listened as someone was spilling the tea they didn't brew at the lunch table. And we have laughed along while someone made fun of another person on TikTok. Now, we haven't necessarily been involved in bullying itself, but also we haven't done much to stop it from happening. And this is probably the most common way bullying is experienced. In a world full of bullying, we feel safe when we aren't the topic of discussion. So it's easier to let bullying happen to someone else than take the chance of it becoming directed towards us if we get involved. Now, both teenagers and adults today experience the problem of bullying in one of these three ways. We throw out comments, or we post captions about other people that are degrading or rude without even thinking about it. We hear rumors that someone has been snapping about us, and it silently crushes our day or our vibe. We scroll through our feeds or scrub through videos of people trashing one another, and without even considering how our clique is fueling their content. Bullying has become part of a new normal. And it's a new normal because we see it all the time. And it feels like it's everywhere and never ending. Plus, with social media, bullying doesn't stop when you leave the environment. It just keeps on going when you leave school, practice, or club. The point of all this is bullying has become more normal, it's become more accepted, and if we're all supposed to be masterpieces, this doesn't feel right at all. So do we just accept this, or should we elevate the way we think about it? I mean, there has to be another way to live, right? Thankfully, there is. It's found in an ancient letter written by Paul, the guy I mentioned earlier. He was writing to Christians in the city of Rome. 2,000 years ago, Rome was the center of culture for the entire world. Think of Rome like we think of New York, LA, or Paris now. The way the Romans behaved, lived, and interacted with each other shaped how the world experienced day-to-day life. So Paul writes to the followers of Jesus living in this powerful city with advice on how to live. Today, as we consider how bullying has become normal in our world, I want us to experience Paul's words personally. So we're going to take some time to process how something that was written so long ago is inviting us in to experience it in a new way to live, like Jesus did. To do that, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to read an entire section of Paul's letter. Now, this is going to be a longer passage than we typically read out loud. See if you can catch every time Paul mentions the way we view or treat other people. Then I'm going to ask you a couple questions, give you a couple minutes to reflect on each one of those silently. You can close your eyes to pray or think, write down notes or thoughts as they pop up. Just focus on Paul's words and then take some quiet time to process how his words might be speaking to you today. Even if you're not sure about church and the Jesus stuff, what Paul wrote can be very beneficial to you. First, let's pause for just a moment and get in the right headspace before we read this. Take just a minute to sit quietly, take a few deep breaths, and if your phone's going to distract you, go ahead and put it away. Okay, here we go. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind He will find acceptable. This is truly the way to worship Him. Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Because of the privilege and authority God has given me, I give each of you this warning. Don't think you're better than you really are. Be honest in your evaluation of yourselves, measuring yourselves by the faith God has given us. Just as our bodies have many parts and each part has a special function, so it is with Christ's body. We are many parts of one body and we all belong to each other. In His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you are a teacher, teach well. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you the leadership ability, then take responsibility seriously. And if you have a gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. Don't just pretend to love others, really love them. Hate what is wrong. Hold tightly to what is good. Love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Rejoice in our confident hope. Be patient in trouble and keep on praying. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Don't curse them. Pray that God will bless them. Be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people, and don't think you know it all. Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. Dear friends, never take revenge. Leave that to the righteous anger of God, for the scriptures say, I will take revenge. I pay them back, says the Lord. Instead, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they are thirsty, give them something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals of shame on their heads. Don't let evil conquer you, but conquer evil by doing good. Now, let's all take a deep breath together and just soak in what we've heard. I'm going to ask you a series of questions now for you to quietly think about what your response might be to them. Where have you seen bullying in life or society, but felt powerless to actually change it? What are some behaviors in society like bullying you find yourself participating in? What holds you back from behaving in a way that is more in line with what Paul talked about? How does bullying go against what Paul writes? What alternatives does Paul offer? Whether you have bullied someone, been bullied, or been a bystander to bullying, how can you begin to overcome the evil of bullying by doing something good this week? One of the things that makes human beings unique is our ability to empathize with others. Empathy is understanding and feeling the feelings of someone else. If we want to do this, we can imagine what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. It's what makes movies and books and TV shows so powerful. Empathy has a ton of power to change our minds about how we see bullying and the role we play in it. It can help us understand what it's like for those who are affected by it. Bullying is a big deal because people are a big deal. And when people are mistreated and talked down to, diminished, and cut down, it matters to God, and it should matter to us as followers of God. That's why we're talking about this today. Normal doesn't mean okay. Expected doesn't mean acceptable. When you see value in others, you behave in ways that solve the problem of bullying. It all begins with acknowledging how valuable people are. Let me just say it, bullying is wrong. If you're behaving like a bully, the good news is that you're invited into a different way of treating others. You can choose to start behaving in ways that align with the value you and other people have. Would you be willing to take the risks that Paul offers and contribute to creating a safe community for yourselves and others? You are not just a bully. Who you are is so much more than that. You are valuable. Other people are valuable too. When you choose to see both of those realities, you'll elevate the way you see and treat others. If you're being bullied, I need you to hear me say this. Being bullied is brutal. And if you're being bullied, it doesn't reflect your real value. No matter what someone says to you and how you've been made to feel, or what thoughts that run through your head because of bullying, I want you to hear that you should be treated as someone with incredible value because you are. Maybe it's time for you to ask someone for help, like your small group leader, or tell someone else that you're being bullied, like a really good friend, or maybe you have a trusted adult. Or refuse to believe that someone else's bullying behavior has anything to do with your value. I understand that taking a step like this, it can be totally complicated, but it's so worth it. Just remember that you are valuable, which means that you're worthy of being treated well by others. When you see value in others, you behave in ways that solve the problem of bullying. You and those around you are masterpieces. Paul was right. Even when the world doesn't behave like this is normal, we can choose to embrace a different way to live. Imagine what would happen in your schools and in our community if we started to elevate the way we think about bullying. Our lives would change, our schools would begin to change, and eventually the world will begin to change. Together, Let's be people who see the value everyone has and who behave in ways that solve the problem of bullying.